Not all who enter the Philippine Military Academy as cadets graduate to become officers of the AFP. After the plebe reception, new cadets have to undergo this barracks training. It is the PMA's version of initial military training designed to be a severe test of character and commitment filtered without those not suited for the Academy's demanding 4-year program. It involves intensive calisthenics, rifle training, obstacle courses, and learning military etiquette, often under strict supervision from senior cadets. On this video, we will present the PMA Class 1971 experience of this barracks training. It includes short previews of their various background before entering the academy. Third military bus with the Philippine Military Academy marked on its side shifted to low gear as it passed the Fort del Pilar Elementary School. On board was Ricardo F. De Leon from Binmali, Pangasinan. Dick was the corps commander of the PMT of Binmali Catholic High School. He graduated salutatorian. He entered UP Diliman to take up civil engineering. After a year in college, his father encouraged him to take the PMA entrance examination. The eldest of 4 boys and a girl, Dick made his father proud when he won the PMT competition held in the Pangasinan capital. This achievement and his consistent display of good leadership led to his selection as the PMT commander. The rattling of transmission gears jolted Dick. The driver had switched to first gear again as they went uphill. From the statue of General Gregorio del Pilar, they passed Nakar Hall, the alumni hall. On top of the hill was St. Ignatius Catholic Chapel. The bus made a hard turn left to Quezon Avenue, passing the Commandant Cadet's residence. Stop at the southeast exit of Borromeo Field, the parade ground. For the last time, Dick checked the paper name tag pinned on his t-shirt. A few senior PMA cadets, elegant in woolen gray white pants with matching white belt and gloves, then boarded the bus. They were told to unload and form on the side of the bus. Dix, together with 147 others, marched towards Borromeo Field. The PMA band played "You're in the Army Now." 30 paces away from the new cadet company commander, who was standing in front of the grandstand with 2 of his staff. To the new cadets' back was Horado Hall with its archfront entrance. It was the Academy's sports gymnasium that doubled as auditorium and social hall. From the Horado Hall emerged the entire reception detail composed of second-year cadets called yearlings. They marched front and center forward and halted behind the new cadets. "Gentlemen, take charge," the company commander ordered. Thunderous shouts from the receiving company erupted. Chaos ensued as the new cadets were made to run and double time. The yearlings were relentless. They peered at the new cadets' improvised name tags and asked, "May I touch you, mister?" The implied order given to the upper class club detail was to separate the boys from the men within 6 weeks of these barracks through physical stress and psychological pressure. Dick's squad leader searched for the other plebes assigned to him. He barked an order. "You, Mr. De Leon, you're in my squad. Stay there and double time knee high." Dick's ordeal began. Orders were given in rapid succession, confusing him. "Crawl, double time, higher, push up. I said push up. Climb those steps. Back, dash. Who art thou? Stop looking around, mister. Brace up. Chin, stomach in, arch your back." Sweat rolled down his forehead and face as he kept on double timing. He held his valise on top of his head. When his squad leader extended his left arm with palm facing the ground, he ordered Dick to touch it with his knees. Each time Dick managed to do it, his squad leader raised his palm higher. His other squad mates sweated it out on the squad leader's right palm. Dick was in pain and in shock. 148 young men with the yearlings on their heels dispersed in several directions for processing. They moved like a herd of ducks bobbing up and down, tended by its mother. Each squad reported to Barracks Station providing such services as issuance of uniforms, depositing of personal items, medical examination, haircut, and tent and bed assignment. Dick's squad moved out of Borromeo Field to the first station in Horado Hall, where tables were lined along the basketball court. The squad of eight lined up before the table, manned by personnel from the supply section. White t-shirts, drawers, socks, shavers, mirror, bathrobes, slippers, soap, comb, shoe brush, shoe shine, laundry brush, laundry soap, metal polishers, white towels, toothbrush, toothpaste, and men's skin braces were issued. Each new cadet received a set of athletic uniforms, first two sets of drill A uniforms. There were also a black necktie, dress, shoes, gray overseas cap, and a black belt with a brass buckle. A field uniform called drill B, consisting of long sleeve shirt and pants with leather combat boots and gray overseas cap, was also issued. The issued items were placed in a big military duffel bag in dark olive green. After the last man was serviced, Dick, with the other plebes in the squad, carried their 40-pound bags, more than half of their height, on their backs. Double timing became harder. Those who came in carrying cash were asked to surrender them for depositing. Personal checks would be issued later. Henceforth, they could only disburse their 40 pesos monthly allowance through checks. The use of cash was punishable. Maybe this is PMA's way of teaching cadets to live within their means. Dick thought. No rest for anyone. With perspiration dripping down his face and soaking his back, Edgar Egay Aglipay had to run up and down the slope near the grandstand, as ordered by his squad leader. Egay Aglipay hailed from Camalaniugan, Cagayan, a province 579 kilometers north of Manila. He graduated salutatorian in both elementary and high school in his hometown. His leadership skills were developed when he was elected president of the High School Student Council. Upon graduation from Camalaniugan High School, he went to Manila to study at UP. But even when he was a little boy, he had set his eyes on PMA. Egay's love for the military made him join the elite UP Rayadillo Model Company. The barber shop, the sound of snipping scissors filled the air as the barbers, clad in white polyester uniforms, expertly gave the new cadets their regulation haircuts. The barber took just a little over a minute to finish Egay's haircut. Within 8 minutes, he had done the entire squad, with sides completely shaved, a minuscule amount of hair on top left. It was hardly surprising that the barbers were so quick. A few sweeps of the electric cutter, a little clipping, done. Squad marched on to what would be their home for the next 6 weeks. The summer camp area, as the site was known, was a cluster of big makeshift military tents with wooden floors located about 200 meters east of Jurado Hall. Two long rows of 10 tents each were parallel to each other. Each row extended to about 250 meters lengthwise. A 30-meter clearing serving as formation area separated them. The camp's perimeter fence was covered with brown burlap sacks to conceal it from the outside. The big welcome arch entrance had a sign that read, "From this camp shall emerge the future generals of the armed forces of the Philippines." 43 members of PMA Class 71 encamped there in April 1967 would emerge as generals 4 decades later. Like the rest, Egay was assigned a tent and a bunk bed. He was also issued a foot locker. Mattresses, pillows, blankets, and bed sheets were already on his assigned bed at the lower bunk level. The smell of new fabric filled the air. After getting his drill A uniform, he was told to dunk all others on his bunk. A guy squad leader taught his men how to wear the drill A uniform, tie their black uh, neckties, wear their overseas caps, and plus their tuck-in shirts. The paper name tags were replaced by leather tags with their names already printed on them. The tag was held in place by a button on the bread packet. A crash course on drills and saluting was given. Basic commands like left face, right face, and about face, as well as movement steps like forward march, left and right flank march, and to the rear march were taught. At that point, those were the only things they needed to know. 5 minutes before 5 p.m., the entire new cadet company assembled in front of the grandstand. Unlike 4 hours before, they now all looked the same because of their drill A uniforms and military haircuts. Some 30 upperclassmen were at the rear of the new cadets formation. Presiding over the oath taking was PMA Superintendent Army Brigadier General Reynaldo A. Mendoza, PMA 40, and present was Commandant of Cadets Army Colonel Godofredo Carrion, PMA 44. At exactly 5 p.m., all 148 new cadets lifted their right hands to take their oath of office as members of the Cadet Corps of the Armed Forces of the Philippines. The ceremony officially marked the beginning of their lives as cadets. The 6 week stay at the summer camp was known by tradition as Beach Barracks because the newbies were not cadets yet, but lowly bees. The order given to the upper class plebe detail was to separate the boys from the men within those 6 weeks through physical stress and psychological pressure. Misfits and those unable to withstand the pressure would be weeded out. By May 12, 42 days after the reception, the men who survived would be incorporated into the cadet corps in a formal ceremony called Incorporation Day. Eduardo F. Piñones was assigned to the fourth tent in the second row with the number 14 posted on its entrance. Ed's father was Colonel Minardo Piñones of the Philippine Constabulary who rose to become chief of the Philippine Constabulary Crime Laboratory in Camp Crame. He had three sisters and was the second from the eldest. At this barracks that day, Ed was asking himself why he chose to go to PMA despite a promising and comfortable life outside. During his senior year in high school, Ed started to love mathematics, so he aimed for an engineering degree at De La Salle College in Top Avenue. But he also loved the PMT and imagined himself wearing the uniform of a Philippine constabulary officer like his father. Oftentimes, to his father's delight, would talk about wanting to enter PMA. His mother, however, discouraged him. The thought of losing her only son should anything happen to him in the military was too much to bear. To apply for PMA or not, that was Ed's dilemma. He loved his mother and understood her feelings. It was a difficult decision. In the end, he followed his instincts to join the ranks of military professionals like his father. He applied for admission to PMA on his sophomore year in college. His mother eventually gave in. Day at this barracks, Ed was miserable. It was past 10 p.m. and most of his tent mates were asleep. He had forfeited his dinner. He could not stop thinking about what they all went through earlier that night. It was their first dinner or evening mess as new cadets. For his first meal as a cadet, Ed, like the others, were told to sit with only a few inches of his buttocks touching the chair. Heads up, chin in and shoulders pulled back. He was shown how to arrange his plate and napkin, how to use the fork and spoon, and how to eat his food using the nine-step square milling method that required moving his hand in a vertical or horizontal path starting from his lap to scooping the food from the plate until it reached his mouth and back to his lap again. Each round would end with a brisk bracing up, pulling shoulders backward, chest out, and tilting the head as far back as possible. At that point, the squad leader would shout, "Two, two, two, swallow!" And all in a matter of 5 seconds. Ed was told to maintain his posture in an exaggerated manner. Straighten your left leg and touch the underside of the table. Maintain that upright body. A napkin ring was placed on his forehead, and a knife was clipped between his chin and throat. He needed to raise his head up high to prevent the napkin ring from falling. Doing so, however, would loosen the grip of the knife placed between his chin and throat. It took a lot of effort to keep both the napkin ring and knife in place. Many times the ring or knife or both would fall. Every time that happened, he would be yelled at by upperclassmen seated at the same table. The table commander would yell, "That is not the right way to do that, damn John." The upperclassmen would then demonstrate the proper way. The dining hall was as noisy as a public market. Yearlings and first-classmen shouted orders at the top of their voices. The dean was interrupted only when the cadet adjutant called for silence in the dining ritual to make announcements such as orders, guard details, and other matters. After that, the shouting resumed. The time was too short to cover all the things that a new cadet should learn. In fact, when the command rise was given by the new cadet detail commander to signal the end of the meal, Ed had almost eaten nothing. Lights were already off. Even with an empty stomach, Ed prepared to sleep and rest his exhausted body. Suddenly, someone in a bathrobe came in and tapped him. Through the faint ray of light coming from the slightly open entrance flap of the tent, he recognized the person as Oscar O. Martinez, a member of Class 70. Oka and Ed were classmates at Paco Catholic High School Class 65. Oka was a salutatorian. Both went to De La Salle University after graduation, but Oka entered PMA in 1966, a year earlier than Ed, so they did not see each other for a year. Oka's visit was a surprise to Ed. The healing gave him a hard boiled egg and ordered him to eat everything in one count. Oka was seated 2 tables away from Ed that night at the mess hall, and he was saw how Ed struggled and had nothing to eat for dinner. Oka's gesture made Ed teary-eyed. Such brotherly concern was deeply appreciated and never forgotten by Ed, but he kept his appreciation to himself. When Oka was turned back, referring to a cadet deferred to a lower class and joined the class of 71, Ed openly spoke of Oka's kind gesture that first night in the academy. At 4 a.m. a week from reception day, the occupants of tent number 15 were awakened by the routine agitating calls from their squad leader. Romy Dominguez and his squad mates had to get up, make their beds, and clean the floor in a rush. Minutes later, Romy undressed and put on his bathrobe and slippers to take a bath. Plebes were told to take a bath 3 times a day, no exception. Reporting compliance every morning, noon, and evening formation was expected. Take a bath every hour of the night was the upperclassmen's order to a plebe who could not comply. Romy shivered in Baguio's 16 degrees centigrade temperature as he trotted to the makeshift roofless bathroom built near the edge of a deep ravine east of the second row of tents. Only corrugated roping materials nailed on all sides hid them from the outside. The bathroom was overflowing with new cadets and upperclassmen taking their bath. Everybody, plebes or upperclassmen, got naked, something Romy and many others had not done before. Finding a space vacated by a classmate, Romy went under the shower, rubbed his body with soap, then rinsed. Under the watchful eye of a yearling, the whole shower process was under time pressure. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10. Scram! 10 seconds to bat. That was all the plebes got. Then they were rushed to clear the room. Romy frantically searched for his bathrobe and towel. Mixed up robes and towels were stacked up on the hanger rack mounted at the galvanized iron wall. Though they had written their names with black indelible ink on all their belongings, it was common to snatch the wrong bathrobe or slip on mismatched slippers in the rush to leave the bathroom. Romy's morale was low. He missed his family and friends and his carefree life. His offenses piled up, which was typical of a plebe. That meant more punishments. There was another thing bothering Romy. He received an invitation to attend his high school graduation as salutatorian of Olongapo National High School, Class 1967. For several nights, he agonized about whether to request permission to go or not. He had learned about another plebe graduating as salutatorian in Ateneo who was allowed to join his high school graduation. The brief respite from hardship caused him to resign upon coming back. Romy did not want that to happen to him. He let the event pass. One Friday night, Ernesto Fernandez and his squad mates were inside their tent preparing for the next day's inspection. Ernie abhorred Saturdays. He hated inspections. They brought countless miseries to plebes like him. He was shining his shoes, alternately blowing on them and rubbing them with a small piece of cloth until they looked shiny. Earlier, he had ironed his drill A uniform. 5 minutes before taps, all plebes hurriedly prepared their beds for sleeping. Tap signaled that it was time to sleep. Tucked inside his blankets, Ernest's eyes were fixed on the tent ceiling. He was not sleepy. He was lonely and wistful for his life before PMA. Ernie first heard about the academy during his high school days in Cebu. After moving to Manila for college, someone suggested that he should try to get admitted. Curious, he went to the GSQ to inquire. A sergeant handed him an application form. As he was about to leave, the sergeant asked where he was going. I'm going home, sir, Ernie replied. The sergeant shook his head with disapproval and ordered Ernie to fill out the application form in a separate room. Later, he took the test. Ernie passed the PMA written test. He also passed the physical exam and, like the rest of the class, was notified via telegram to report to GHQ on April 1st, 1967. Before passing the entrance test, Ernie's life was crammed with uncertainties. He didn't know where to go or what to do. After finishing high school in Cebu, he went to Philippine College of Commerce in Manila for a commerce degree. He got bored. He then tried taking up radio engineering at Guzman Tech. That didn't work either. He was laid off from the Bureau of Posts where he worked as a temporary worker. Later, he landed a job at Central Textile Mills in Balintawak, Quezon City. His shift started at 10 p.m. and ended at 6 a.m. for a full 8-hour workday. Oftentimes, he would be taking a taxi to meet up and go drinking with friends after working a full day at the Parcel Post Division Bureau of Post. Drinking sprees would often bring out the worst in him. Oftentimes, he would bend over a bridge to relieve himself in the Pasig River. Then he would snooze on the sidewalk on a Chaggy street just for the heck of it. It was not anything he could be proud of years later, but it was what it was. Ernie was born in Quiapo, Manila, and baptized at the Quiapo Church, grew up in Saksak, Dalaguete, Cebu, with his mother. Despite being absent from Quiapo for years, he was very familiar with the area. In fact, most of the vendors at Quinta Market were his relatives. Even the Chaga sidewalk dwellers were his allies. The next several days at the summer camp were hectic. Ernie quickly learned that in PMA there was only one way to do things. Every day he was required to align his rubber shoes, leather shoes, combat shoes, and slippers beneath the lower bunk where he slept. The right side was reserved for him, while the left side was reserved for the cadet staying in the upper bunk. Blankets and bed sheets should be folded in a prescribed manner and in the proper order. The mattress wrapped with a bed sheet, another bed sheet over it, and then a blanket on top. The blanket and bed sheet folded 2.5 feet from the head and tucked in at the sides. There was only one standard way to wear the cadet hats, fill the laundry bags, or hang the raincoats. Hats, when not worn, should be displayed on top of the pillow. Any deviations from established norms should be punished with demerits or punishment. Outdoors or plebes are required to double time and not cut corners. They were also required to salute all upperclassmen or officers they would meet outside. This was something imprinted in Ernest's mind because of one incident. He was made to salute and salute for failure to do it when he failed to see a senior officer across the street. Then the senior cadet left. Ernie had to stand there on the road alone, counting his salutes until he reached 100. Each one of the plebes was issued an M1 Garand rifle for parade inspection. Unlike the black painted wooden gun Ernie used in PMT, this one was real. Everyone was trained to assemble and disassemble the rifle, even when blindfolded. Borch rubber and linseed oil were provided. A piece of cloth slightly dipped in oil has to be inserted in that little slot of the borch rubber strip shaped like a needle. Shove it back and forth, Ernie's squad leader ordered him. After oiling, Ernie inserted dry cloth to remove the oil residue. An oily rifle was considered an offense. An upperclassman would peep through the bore to check for the slightest hint of dust or rust. What is that elephant doing in your bore? The upperclassman would exaggerate if he found something. For several nights, Ernest's yearlings had been asking him and the other plebes in his squad to line up outside their tent. They did different drills of a soldier of arms with M1 rifles. These daily rifle exercises, they were told, would develop their arm muscles. For Ernie, it seemed endless. At first, he felt severe pain and cramps on his arms until one day the M1 rifle felt tighter than its real weight of 11.6 pounds. At that stage, the Garand rifle became just a toy that he could flip and open and close the bolt with ease during inspection arms. As the days went by, our progress was obvious. The number of repetitions ordered for physical exercises, called the Army Dozen, got higher and higher. It started with 6 repetitions, then it became 12. Jogging was no longer done in the athletic oval of the parade ground, but around the 373-hectare rolling hills of Fort Del Pilar, with us wearing combat boots and bearing raised M1 rifles. The sound of the click after the command of inspection arms sounded as one and in unison. Marching cadence sounded good and in rhythm. These barracks got tougher. The morning report of all present would sometimes be interrupted with, "Sir, fourth class cadet so and so absent. AWOL. AWOL means absence without leave." It got so tough that classmates would resign during the day, got talked into hanging on by afternoon, only to end up resigning again by dinner time. The most exciting case of AWOL was executed by one classmate who trekked down at midnight the very steep slope at the west side of the camp near Borromeo Field. His target was the road below at Camp 6, Tuba, Benguet, the same place they had their lunch break when they first reported to PMA. He endured the kilometer hike as he slid down the ravine, hurling trees and hardened rocks, unmindful of the presence of wild animals and unfriendly natives. He escaped successfully from PMA. Camaraderie continued to build up. Everyone had to go through the same thing, be they sons of well-to-do parents, of general or of poor parents. They helped each other shine shoes, polish buckles, and pack footlockers. Individualism was shown and punished. The fault of one is the fault of all. Help each other. Remember that, please. Yes, sir. After 6 weeks of grueling hardships, these barracks officially ended on May 12, 1967. At a formal ceremony called Incorporation Day, the class of 71 was allowed to join the Cadet Corps. The ceremony began with the Cadet Corps minus the new cadets marching to the parade ground. "Let the fourth classmen join the Corps," Senior Cadet Melchor Rosales, the Baron of Class 68, commanded. The plebes marched toward the four-letter companies and filled up the ranks reserved for them. For the first time since April 1967, the Cadet Corps, numbering more than 300, marched as one.